Have you outgrown your life? That's such a big statement that I'm making right now, right? But today we're going to go into some of the granular on how would you know if you have outgrown your life? How do you know if you've outgrown a job or relationships or goals? Like how do you move past where you are now so that you can live that full and satisfied life that you envision? I hope you stick around for the entire episode because tons of practical how to evaluates throughout the entire episode that I know are going to serve you and help you level up in your life so that you are living the full, satisfied life that you can have. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss another episode. So many amazing guests coming on the show, and so many other wonderful mindset episodes coming your way. Okay, guys, I know I said, have you outgrown your life? And some of you may have done like a little freak out, or maybe internally you've got some butterflies like, oh, wow, I've been thinking about this. Or maybe it made you feel like you just needed to shut this off because you don't even want to engage the concept. But let's make this a little bit fun. We're going to go through this a little bit systematically, and it's going to be fun and practical, I promise you. Okay. So I'm going to start with a little story about my daughter because that's what inspired this entire episode. It always, it usually stems from relationships in my life and the outdoors. Go figure, right? So we're going to start there, and then we're going to just do some evaluating on different parts of our life and kind of how we can understand where we might need to pivot in those parts. Recently, my daughter outgrew her pajamas. Now, that sounds really funny to a lot of people. I get it. But she likes to wear those pajamas that are all one piece, kind of like onesies for little babies, but without the foot part to them. And she had this pair that she's actually had for like 2 years. And when we initially got them, they were ginormous. Anyway, she's wearing them, and the sleeves are coming up. They're like 3/4 length sleeves, and it's really slim on her tiny frame, and the legs are coming up, and I'm like, sweetheart, these are you've really outgrown these. Like, we kind of need to upgrade your pajama wardrobe a little bit. And she really was hesitant. She didn't want to. And so, why not make it fun? So for her birthday, I hunted down, and it becomes more challenging as kids get, bigger in stature and everything, to find pajamas of this nature. But I managed to find on clearance, no less, like a pair of these pajamas. And so we gave it to her for her birthday, and she was excited, but then she was also hesitant. And she held them up. She didn't wear them for an entire week at least. And I said, sweetheart, why aren't you wearing these new pajamas? And she said, well, Mom, they're just so big. They're ginormous. They are way too big for me. And I said, let's hold them up. I know that they are going to be on the larger side of life, but let's just hold these up and see how these work for you. And we held them up, and they were obviously a little bit large, but they weren't, so large that it was ridiculous. And I had her try them on, and she's like, oh, I don't know. And yeah, I understand. I was like her as a kid. She wanted the comfort of what was familiar. Maybe this is already resonating with some of you, and it doesn't have to be pajamas, right? It's anything in life. It's comfortable and it's familiar, and it's predictable. We know exactly what to expect. Even though it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter and more restrictive on us, we just still want to cling to it. So I convinced her finally to try these new pajamas. I said, sweetheart, just humor me, sweetheart. Try them just one night, please, and see how it goes. And guess what? She tried it one night, and then she has not taken these pajamas off since. Well, for pajama time. And what she has noticed now is, wow, Mom, this material is so much thicker. This is what my old pajamas used to be like. These are all soft and fluffy. And she's understanding, she's recognizing the benefit of having these pajamas that are actually fitting her and giving her space to grow. Pretty powerful. No, it's so silly because it's pajamas, but just recap real fast, right? old pajamas. They were great when she initially got them. They were, worked really well. She loved them. And now they're kind of like the boa constrictor, and they are just clingy and too tight. And then she's in this new pair of pajamas that is giving her space to continue to grow into the young woman she will become, right? So let's take the pajamas just a step further. We all know, if you've been listening to Ask Me How I Know for any length of time, you probably know that I'm a very avid mountain biker. And that means that I take my kids out in the wilderness with me as well. And I love that because there's so much character development that happens when you are working your body and when you're out in nature. It's really powerful. If you're an indoor person, you probably have a way of doing this, but I encourage everyone to adopt some type of hobby that pushes you physically while you're outside, because it's amazing what happens. Well, we went out and rode a 10-mile loop around our house, and I was so proud of my kids. They just absolutely crushed it. That's a whole different mindset episode. But one thing that my husband and I noticed was how much our daughter had outgrown her bike. We're like, oh boy, she outgrew her bike. And here's the thing, she's always had hand-me-down bikes, and we buy a nice bike for our son. And then if you buy a nice bike, highly encourage that. Just, we're able to pass it down, and mechanically it's super solid, very reliable, and all the bells and whistles. Well, she's outgrown this bike. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, we're getting into bigger bikes, which means a larger investment and everything. And so we start looking around. I'm scouring Craigslist to see if we can find a bike that, is a great bike, but maybe a little more economical and everything, because she's a growing kid. All that to say, we end up down at a bike shop 45 minutes away from us. Because remember, when you live in a rural community, you have to travel for these things. And we end up at this bike shop. And I'd spoken to the owner, and he said he had one bike that was appropriate for her size. He set it aside. Hallelujah, because if you don't know, there's a bike shortage. I know that sounds really funny for most people, but yeah, because of COVID manufacturing, there's this bike shortage. So he sets this bike aside, and we get down there, and my daughter and I have this conversation as we're driving down to the bike shop. Like, okay, sweetheart, this new bike is going to be a lot like the pajama situation. Coming full circle, y'all. And so, we're talking about this. I'm like, okay, this new bike, it is going to feel bigger. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable. It might feel a little clumsy at first. You're going to have to build this new relationship with this bike because it's new and you don't know what this bike is going to be like. So we're out there she's riding this bike around in the parking lot. My husband and I are watching her making some adjustments. We try another frame size to see, well, can she go up in the next one, right? We're trying this out to see where is the growth going to happen? What would suit her best? Our daughter ends up falling in love with this bike, which is great because it's the only bike near where we live that's going to fit her. And she had the privilege, and it's such a privilege to be able to go in there, and we let her call the shots, and she's like, I'll take it. And it was just the smile on her face was just ginormous. If you don't follow me over on Facebook, you go to my personal page, because I'm a very open, transparent person. You can go on the personal page and you'll see I made a little video of her from the beginning of her bike life, to this new bike that she just got, her first bike of her own, and she's really excited and really proud of it. But this all comes to this point of, have we outgrown our lives? It's really easy when we're talking about children to be like, oh yeah, the kids are growing so much. And then as adults, unless we're growing in diameter, we usually don't notice much of our growth. I have a lot of clothes that still fit me from 20 years ago. And so for people that have, maintained the same size, it might be even more complicated, right? And so, we have to have some check-ins to see where are we at in life. Are we growing? Are we stagnant? And oddly enough, do we need to get a new pair of pajamas so that we can continue to grow? Like, there is no part in life where we should just be like, okay, we're stuck, like, or this is where we stop, like we're not growing anymore. That's not how life is, right? So we need to figure out what is our new pair of pajamas, or what's the new bike and the new relationship that we need to invite into our lives so that we can continue the growth pattern throughout our entire lives. Marie Kondo, that she wrote this book, and the book is called The Life-Changing Art of Tidying Up. It was really trendy a few years ago, and it was this concept of taking objects right in your home, feeling them, feeling the energy from them, and deciding like, do I need this? Does this bring me pleasure? Does this bring me joy? Is this still what it was when I first got it? Do I still need this in my life? Or do I need to simply say, you've served me well, thank you, go on to your next home? I haven't read the book. I'm really nutshelling that from a lot of things. People in my life have spoken about this book. So I'm admitting right now that I've borrowed that and consolidated it down to that little bit. Okay. But we have to do this. And many of you do this in your own way. So I'm just giving like a reference point. But we do this, right? Or we need to be doing this. We need to be evaluating, how is this serving me well? Or what's this relationship really like? When you're looking at your job, you might be looking at, is this job still challenging to me in a positive way? Am I bored? Am I just cruising along, just kind of clocking my time and going through the motions and, just same old, same old? If you're somewhere around my age, you might remember Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan doing a bunch of rom-coms. And Joe versus a Volcano came out when I think it was in about 6th or 7th grade. And I just died laughing at that movie. But at the beginning of this movie, Tom Hanks and this entire workforce, they're just like kind of zombie-ish, just trugging along, walking into this big factory to work. And you just see the life just being sucked out from him. Is your job serving you well? Maybe you're making a great salary or you're being compensated well, but is it satisfying to your soul? Is it nurturing? Do you feel the reward of it? Do you feel yourself still growing or helping those around you to grow? Evaluating this is super duper important. If you're not feeling that level of satisfaction. And let's not confuse this, because some people, I don't know everyone's mindset on work, right? And I don't know everyone's work ethic. Some people might want more from their job than is reasonable, and some people might want less from their job than is reasonable. So, just taking an honest evaluation of, what should I expect from this job? And there are times, I truly believe there are times where you simply have a job and its sole purpose is to provide monetarily for us, or to provide for whatever need. Maybe it's a stepping stone so you get the skills to move into what you really want, right? But understanding, what is the purpose of this job? Maybe the job isn't completely satisfying, but because of where you're at in your life, maybe you have a young family of sorts, and that job just provides that stable income and gives you the time freedom with your family. Okay, so there are different trade-offs, but understanding clearly, what am I trading off? Why am I going after this? And is this worth me staying here? Now, if it's not, and if you ask yourself these questions and you say, yeah, this job, it's sucking my soul, it's not fulfilling, rewarding, satisfying, it's not even compensating me well. If you're coming to that point, then now it's time to reevaluate and say, what am I qualified for? What are my goals, my dreams, my ambitions? What do I expect from a job? Maybe simply having a conversation with, the person above you, whatever your superior is in whatever field you're working in. Maybe there is some movement that you can make, and even lateral movement, putting yourself in a new position. You might be working with a new team and on a new project, and that might be enough stimulation to just get the wheels moving. Maybe you need to have that challenge to make some upward, the upward growth, and you need to look and evaluate. Might mean changing companies. I'm not sure, but please have that conversation. Too many people are choosing to be stuck in their position, right? And they think that it's safe and it's secure. Well, guess what? Layoffs happen, companies downsize, things happen. And so don't wait for life to push you out of a position to put you in a point of discomfort. Like embrace the discomfort on your own and move forward in the capacity that you want. Okay, so if you've outgrown your job, there are steps that you can take to provide room to grow and have that full, that satisfaction that you are looking for. Before we go any further, I want to draw attention to this really fun fact about prefixes. Now, I'm not a total grammar fanatic, so forgive me, those of you who are, but I do love prefixes and the meanings behind prefixes. And we're talking today about outgrowing life, right? And that prefix out actually has the meaning to surpass or to be greater or better, right? So when we're thinking, have I outgrown life? It's like, whoa, have I surpassed where I was? Have I become better? Have I become greater and stronger, right? Some context for that, right? Besides the word outgrow would be, have I outwitted somebody? Which always reminds me of the Princess Bride movie, you know, the battle of the wits. So can you outwit somebody, right? Can you best them because you are wittier? Or if we've outnumbered somebody or outperformed someone, that just means that we've done something in a surpassing way, in a better way. Now, I want you to contrast that to the prefix in, right? And so think about ingrown, right? Maybe the opposite of outgrown. And we don't want to be ingrown. Now, I'm going to get gross for a second and say, ooh, ingrown toenails is the first thing I think of when I think of ingrown. And that's really nasty, right? Think about what happens with an ingrown toenail. You know, you end up with a lot of pain. You end up with an infection. You might have to actually go to a physician and have, you know, a little minor surgery done. It's uncomfortable, okay? That prefix in, often, one, there is another definition for that prefix, but it means without or not. So think about this. Are you insane, right? Not sane. So as we're moving forward and thinking about outgrowing something, it's a very powerfully wonderful concept, especially when we compare it to, am I ingrown? And when you contrast those two with outperforming versus ingrown, and I always just think of that ingrown toenail, which do you want to be? What do you want to have in your life? Okay, grammar lesson over. You now are partially learned up on your prefixes, on a couple prefixes, but we're going to move into something that's super uncomfortable. And I've spoken about this before on Ask Me How I Know, and that is relationships. Have we outgrown relationships? This is such a sensitive topic, especially if your roots run deep and they're familiar and comfortable, right? Like those are a lot of our relationships rest and live in that space of comfort. But are those relationships allowing you to grow into the next best version of yourself? Or are they like my daughter's old pajamas that are just like boa constrictor, you know, holding you back? I'm going to say, as I always say when I speak on this sensitive subject, is that this does not mean anyone is a wrong person or a bad person. This is not a judgmental statement about people. It's evaluating, who are you, where are you headed, and what are you doing? Tony Robbins says relationships come into our life for a reason, for a season, and some of them stick around for a lifetime. So if we're evaluating our relationships, you know, there might be a reason they're there. They might just be there for a season of life. You know, when you have children, a lot of times your relationships are, you know, woven together because of your children. And maybe they're not your best friends, but you have this common bond of sharing sports together, you're cheering your kids on, or you're in some type of hobby or group together. And so, you know, sometimes for a season of our life, we get to share this time with other people. And that might just be the end of it. Once the kids move on and they're older, you know, that they might not be the people that you hang out with all the time. that's okay. You receive it for what it is, and you have a grateful heart, and then you're able to move on into other relationships. Some ways to contemplate and to kind of put your finger on the pulse of relationships is to evaluate, are we too busy for each other? Because oftentimes that too busy can be just a buffer and a beat on, is this relationship alive? Is it growing? Is it flourishing? And if we're always too busy for someone, then maybe that's not that significant relationship in our life during this season of our life. Now, I think we can all admit that we have some friends that we won't speak with every single day, but we'll talk once or twice a year, and you pick up the phone and it's like no time has passed and you just pick up right where you left off. Those are really special friendships. Those are some of those lifetime friendships. You want to evaluate the connection. Do you still feel deeply connected to that friend? Or is the only common ground the past? So the conversation, and that's super fun. There are people that we have in our lives where we get together, occasionally, and you just get to reminisce about the past. There is something special about those relationships in our lives. Are those going to be the driving relationships that take us on that growth pattern so we can become the next best version? Probably not. But the past is a window, and that can be very constructive. So again, this isn't, oh, you got to, cut these people out of your life. It's not that. It's just understanding the relationships and having proper expectations for the relationships in our life. A couple other areas that you want to evaluate with relationships are, do you feel supported? Friends that are going to help you on that growth pattern and that you are going to help as well are going to be those friends that you can link arms with, and you are feeling supported. Maybe you are feeling you had a rough day last week. I had a rough afternoon. It was a math lesson that did not turn out so great with my daughter, and I was able to actually be honest with one of the friends of my life. I saw her in town and I just said, yeah, wow, had a rough time of it, blah, blah, blah. And she was encouraging and supportive and gave me encouraging words that just fed my soul. So you want to have those people in your life that they're going to support you. They're going to ask those questions. Oh my gosh, how's your business going? I know you can do it. You want those encouragers in your life, and you want those people that are also encouraging by speaking truth to you. Have you considered handling it in this way? Right? You want to have people that are offering another perspective for you. And that's another form of support. Lots of forms of support, but just kind of nutshelling it for the sake of time. One more way you might evaluate those relationships are, have you run out of things to talk about? Sometimes you might find yourself at the end of the conversation and you're just kind of not really sure. So we've spoken a lot about, how do I know if I've outgrown my job? How do I know if I've outgrown some of the relationships in my life? And now I'm going to take this to the super macro level. I know I did this in such a flip-flop order, but it's okay. All right. So how do you know if you've outgrown your life? Here are just a few ways to just put your finger on the pulse and say, does this fit? How about this? I'm big into congruency. And so we want to look, are our values and our actual life matching? Are the things that we want in our life and the things that we're doing in our life, are they congruent? Are they matching? Are they supporting each other? If they're not, you might have outgrown part of your life. Come on back down and do a little bit of reevaluating. Reevaluating is super important. You need to reevaluate your life. Like, what is it that you want from your life? What do you want from the relationships in your life? What do you want from your job? Really understanding what it is that you're after is going to help you understand if you've outgrown your life. And if you have, this is going to show you, this is where I can start leveling up. So we already spoke about our job and relationships. You could apply this to hobbies. You can apply this across the board in your life to see, where is it that I can grow a little bit more, or where is it I've outgrown and I need to level up and get a new bike, get my new pajamas, right? as you're evaluating those goals, you can also take the time to create a new vision board. If you haven't already, I really, sometimes when it comes to these practices, you guys, I'm going to be totally honest, as I always am. I will put them off and I'll believe in the concept, but I won't fully embrace and accept it and bring it into my life. And having that vision board, having those pictures, and I also have the accomplishment board. It's a very big board, and I've, kind of created a little section for accomplishments as well, because if you've been listening, I believe in celebrating along the way so that you can keep that momentum moving forward. So really evaluating having that vision board so that you can see, what are my visions? What is it I'm really after? And what are those feelings I'm after? Why do I believe this is going to bring me satisfaction? And being able to see those things and interact with them on a daily basis is super powerful. It'll keep you grounded when you want to quit. And trust me, everybody wants to quit from time to time. You'll definitely know you've outgrown your life when you go around a group of people that you used to hang out with all the time, and you just feel this complete disconnection. And it's not, again, it's not a judgment or a value statement about people. It's just that recognition of, this is odd. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel that I fit with these people any longer. And really not running from those feelings, but identifying those feelings and accepting them for what they are. Now, here's the flip side of it. You might find that everyone else around you is changing and you're not. You might find that, wow, all these people, they've kind of gone and they've done these other things, and I'm still here. If you've read Who Moved My Cheese, the kids version, I highly recommend it. It is on my reading list, and I believe it's for adults as much as kids, because adults are very visual, even still, and simplicity is always great. But one of the characters, he just stays stuck, and all the other 3 out of the 4 mice end up growing, changing, and flourishing, and there's one mouse that is stuck. Okay. And so you don't want to be that stuck mouse. You want to be that mouse that is looking around, circumspect, and changing and growing. And if the people around you are changing and growing, it's super exciting. And if, sometimes people don't want to grow, maybe they're comfortable and complacent. It's their life, not yours. Don't worry about that. But don't let that stop you or hold you back from living the life that you are, you are gifted with this life. So don't let anyone else hold you back. Don't let anyone else be that old pair of pajamas. Hop on a new bike, get a new pair of pajamas, and grow. This is your life. You get one life, and it's yours to make the absolute most of. And you have this incredible opportunity to do great things in the world. And unfortunately, most of us have to rediscover that at some point in adulthood. It gets kind of, shoved down when we're kids, but take the time, rediscover that, rekindle that, because you do have a gift and you have something powerful to go do. This is what I have for you this week. I hope that as you are driving about, doing your business, as you're sitting behind your screens, whatever it is that you are doing, I hope that this concept of, have I outgrown this, or am I ingrown? I hope that this is staying at the front of your mind, and that you are making some evaluations. Because even if you evaluate and you say, wow, no, I'm on this growth pattern, this is great. Even if you end up drawing a conclusion that you are highly satisfied with, going through that process creates that really powerful habit to keep you in check along the way. Your life, your choice, and you get to make the most of it. Until next time, go find your freedom.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.